there comes the, and that's so serious. This is so true. There comes the Air Force guy. And the Air Force guy is a tall, skinny guy, very trim and everything. But his uniform was about this far off from his shoes. So he needed a little longer pair of shoes.
He was rocking
And
the
I'm
studs,
like,
Edwin. He was rocking the
huh?
studs.
I know. So he's done. I'm like, I don't think this.
What's happening, my friends? Welcome to this episode of Car Seats and Coffee. I have not only a friend, but someone that I get the opportunity to work with weekly, Mr. Edwin Espinel. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thomas, it's been a while. We've talked about this for so long, and I really am excited to be with you here and talk about what I really care the most. That's me, my family, my kids, and what has brought me here. It's been a long road, not only just in terms of years, but it's been a long road in terms of experience. And this is a great opportunity to share something deeper, more than just work, right? I mean, we do work, we do a lot of things, but that work, those experiences out there in the world affect the way I do my life and how my life is shaping up. And so this is great. I love this opportunity. So let's jump in. And what would you like me to share? What would you like to share with me? And maybe we can talk about what we love the most.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna talk about it, my friend.
Yeah,
The fun thing is, so Edwin and I, like you said, we get an opportunity to actually work outside of the podcast together. And every time almost that we do like a video together or we do something, like
yeah.
we end up talking about this very subject, our families and why it's so important, right? And our roles as being dads. So before we even jump into some of that, Edwin, just give like the audience and some of the listeners just a little backstory of like who you are and what kind of things like motivate you and you just enjoy out of life.
Okay, well, so um, I was born and raised in South America, in Ecuador, and uh, and that particular experience has been quite unique in forming the basis of who I am today. Um, I came to this country when I was 21 out of a wish of my father. My father had visited the United States. He had a tourism agency down in Ecuador. So he brought a group of people here that wanted to come to Utah. And so he saw the universities here. And I learned later in life, actually, that my father made himself a promise. He says, I want my sons to come to study here. And somebody mentioned to him, it's like, well, that's difficult even for people that live here. And he says, no, my sons will come. And sure enough, little at the time, we all came and studied here. And some of us liked it, some of us didn't. And eventually, we formed a life outside where we were born. But so I was 21. I came to the United States with $800 in my pocket. That's it. And I had the opportunity to study English, and then eventually went into the university. And I kind of like progressed in things, and I learned what the United States was all about, and I learned the culture, I learned the language, and I wanted a laboratory. Well, my perception was this is like a lab. Let's try to see what happens. So me being a sucker for a new experience all the time, I said, well, let's try this. So I tried this and I tried that, and a little at the time, it became something that guided who I was. So I went to school. I I went to school down south here from Salt Lake City. We call it the one from down south, right? And some of you that don't know, we're referring to BYU. Then my father was in the military. He had a long history of being an officer in the military in Ecuador, and his life is quite a beautiful experience for him. And that kind of pushed me to desire to be in the military as well. But in Ecuador, I couldn't be in the military. I I wear contacts now, and that's from since young age. I didn't have a good eyesight, so I couldn't serve in the military in Ecuador, and I wanted to be in the Navy. And they say a love in every port, and who at 18 doesn't want a love in every port? So I'm just giving it out, man.
I
I'm like,
love it.
this is crazy, right? So I said, well, I couldn't do it. They said I need a good site in order to do that. So they pretty much declared me unable to serve. In Ecuador, you have to register for military service all the time. So at least you serve like what you would call a boot camp type thing 1 year. But they didn't allow me. So like, well, that dream didn't come true. And so when I came to the United States, one time I was studying on campus, and I saw somebody that came over and started talking with me. He looked like a military staff, and he was a recruiter. And I said, "Hey, so how have you thought about that?" And I said, yes, my entire life, but I cannot do it. And he says, "Well, we don't care here. We can take you." so, so they're like, "You can take me in." I said, "Sure." And I said, "Well, but I am only a resident in the United States. I'm legally here, but I'm only with legal residence paper, not a citizen." And he said, "Oh, that's okay." And I'm like, "You're okay with that?" And I wear glasses. Like, "We're okay with that?" So I'm like, okay. So I talked about it, and he brought me in into the recruiting office and introduced me to the Navy guy. The Navy guy came in, and I'm sorry, guys, in the military, this is a true story. But the recruiter was, let's just say, he was wearing his white uniform, and the uniform is usually bell bottoms at the bottom. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. So then then comes the army guy. I guess he had been in the mountains for a bit that particular day, taking a group out there and young fellas, and then he was not his green uniform. His was a little bit disheveled, and I'm like, okay, well, not really. So there comes the and that's so serious. This is so true. There comes the Air Force guy. And the Air Force guy is a tall, skinny guy, very trim and everything. But his uniform was about this far off from his shoes. So he needed a little longer pair of shoes.
He was rocking
And
the
I'm
studs,
like,
Edwin. He was rocking the
huh?
studs.
I know. So I'm like, I don't think this. So we went through all that. And there comes a guy wearing some uniform that I haven't really paid attention to before. It's a dress blues from the Marines. He looked sharp, and knowing that I wanted a love in every port, I said, "That's the uniform I want." I like he looked sharp, and I like that. So I signed up for the Marines, and so I went and I did my thing, and came back to Utah, and I love the experience. And that is something that I learned to treasure, because when they actually said, and I recall just this particular moment in boot camp, uh, they said, "You are finally Marines. And once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine." And, and I put that in my heart, not in my arm. I didn't get a tattoo because I didn't need it to show that out there. It's like it's in my heart. I know what I can do now. And that is something that as a boy, and I'd say as a young man, you always want to know
Mm.
is, what are you made out of? And that is a question that I had since since I was a teenager. And, and I wanted to measure up. And what is interesting is that now I'm thinking, it's interesting. I wanted to measure up with my dad. Can I be as great as he is? And so at that moment, it gave me the feeling I can do this. I was able to survive boot camp, and I was able to survive the military, and I am there. Nobody can take that from me. Nobody. You can, I mean, you can lose all kinds of things. You can fail in all kinds of ways, but nobody can take that from me. And I tell you, being a Marine, it really gave me a confidence that I needed in order to move forward. So eventually, I did my time and came back, finished school in the school at the University of Utah. I didn't go back to BYU. That's what I call it, the school in the South. And then I was stationed in Tooele. But eventually, they have an Army depot there, but they have a Marine unit. And and then I did my schooling, and then I became more involved with the community in general. I learned to understand what the social issues we have in Utah are, and as a Hispanic Latino, I wanted to know what the Latino community was like. So I got more and more involved. So worked with the governor's office of Hispanic Affairs at that time. And then as an intern, then I became the assistant director there, and then eventually recruited by a bank. And yes, one of my dreams was to become a millionaire. And so I said, banking is perfect, right? That's I'm gonna learn how to deal with money, and then I got into that, and I was in executive banking, which is a private banking area of banking. Not many people know about it unless you have quite a bit of money. And I did my part on that, and eventually I wanted more. And somebody mentioned to me about what about doing something for the community, writing a I don't know, programs or anything like that. And so I got involved almost at the same time with Red Cross, and and they needed somebody to help teach the community about how to prevent HIV/AIDS in the community. And so I said, "Would you train me on that?" And they said, "Yeah, sure." And I got a job with the Salt Lake County Health Department. I left banking, which all my friends were saying, "Are you crazy?" And like, I wanted to do something that was more meaningful than just getting people in debt. That's how I saw banking. And then I said I wanted to do something for the community. So I got that, and I worked with the Salt Lake County Health Department, and I created an educational program for men in jail. And so this particular program was to teach them about how to prevent HIV infections. And then we talked about harm reduction when using drugs and other substances. And then interestingly enough, many of them, we found that for a while that they were having issues with domestic violence. So got into parenting. And so in this particular program, it's called Be Safe, Male Talk. And so I was with men in jail talking about these issues that are real, but having a male talk. You and I are talking as fathers. With them, I was talking as men. They're like, come on, we know what is up. I know, you know, as men, we can talk certain way. So let's talk about things. And then that got me into, I was there for about 6 years, teaching in prison and in jails. And for a while, that was my social life, which was interesting because I at the same time, I took the opportunity to do a family literacy program at night. So we took called Even Start program. It was funded by the government, and so with the school district, I decided to maintain those two. And it was interesting because many of the parents that I saw at night had same issues that the ones that I saw in the morning during in jail or prison. And in fact, couple of the parents had couple of the children in that program had the parents in jail. So it was like I could see how that was so detrimental for the children, for the family to have a person of their family, their parent, in jail. And on one end, I was with families, teaching them about parenting, the parents and the children, helping them be to grade level in reading, math, whatever they needed, giving the support they needed. And for the younger ones, teaching them early so when they start school, they are not behind. On the other hand, I was teaching the parents in jail, or the men in jail, had to be men. And that even sounds right now kind of interesting, teaching them how to be men. But honestly, what I notice is that many men are guys for a while. Hey, we're guys, right? And whatever. And I say, guys are a dime a dozen, but men are few. So there are some things that we can learn as men to make us men and stop being guys. Because there's a time for that. And there is a time to be men. And I was coming from the perspective that I saw these kids not having their parents at home. And many, especially in the minority communities, and I know that the African American community, for instance, is this way. There are cities that were or neighborhoods where the majority of their men are not present, and that kind of got to me. So I continue my work. Eventually, the program that I did in jail, I left back in for a while to another coworker of mine, and they continued the program. And I was always a speaker that came every once in a while because I have moved to work with the state at the state health department, doing this kind of the same thing with HIV and AIDS, which it was very, very impactful in my life because I was the one in many cases that gave the person the news that they were infected with the virus. And we know HIV and AIDS have a what do you call a stigma. Everybody thinks it's a death sentence, regardless of the advances that we've made in treatment. And so I was the one that told them that they were infected, and I was trying to help them walk their new life about what they can do to live longer and healthier. And so I was doing that. I did that for about 16 years, 15 years at the health department and state. And then eventually I wanted to grow a little more in public health. So I wanted to understand what population health was all about. So I got into the program that had to do with chronic conditions. And so talking about hypertension, diabetes, physical activities, nutrition, and parentheses, I was diagnosed with diabetes back in 2004, I believe. And so being part of this program was more personal because, hey, how do you deal with people like me?
Mm,
So I became very interested in that. And so working with health systems and local health departments has always been part of the work I do. And that's where I was when the pandemic hit me or hit us all. And they say, "Oh, you speak Spanish?" Yes, and at the health department, I have always been able to help all the different programs, talk to the media. I had worked quite a bit with the community, so through the years, so the last 20 plus years, I have worked with the community, so they know who I was. And so being a voice for the health department with the media was almost just perfect because they knew Edwin.
mm,
And so when the pandemic hit, I remember one of our coworkers, Charlotte, came in to my cubicle and said, "Edwin, we need you. There are three Spanish media outlets that want to talk about this issue." And I said, "What is the issue?" I says, "Well, it's the coronavirus. We
mm,
have we have it here." And I'm like, "Okay." So I went downstairs, heard the news, and I turned around and just kind of share what I heard in English to in Spanish. And next thing we know, I'm being assigned to the public information office, and it's been quite a ride. And that's we've known each other for a long time, but now we're working closer with you, and it's been fantastic because I now know you, and you and I have a lot of common things in our lives, and so that's kind of where my transition has been to today.
so there's so many things in there I want to hit on.
Oh
One,
yeah.
yeah, one is being, I know that we are meant to like hang out and do what we do because I would have been the same way in the recruiter's office. I would have been like, nope, nope, nope. All right, now that guy I want to kind of be like. So I love that story. That was epic. I did want to know really quick before we jump into your family. Um, when you were dealing with a lot of these dads, and you were saying a guy needs to grow into a man, which I absolutely love because I think it's the same way. A guy can do the act in order to have a child,
Yeah.
but a man's going to take the responsibility of raising that child, right? So it's kind of that man is what we need for dads. Dads need to be strong men in it, but not in this traditional sense of, hey, I'm a man, but it's up here, right?
Hmm.
Like I will take it's the I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of my children regardless of what the family dynamics are, right? um,
Right.
so when you were dealing with a lot of this and seeing these, were you already a dad at this point?
Yes. Yes. So this was from 2000 to 2006, and when I was pretty much doing these classes in jail and prison. And my first son was born in 96. So my first and my second was born in 99. So pretty much they were growing at the same time that I was there. In fact, um, I used quite a bit of my own personal experience as a dad to share with them because if I was going to do a male talk with a man, I was going to just say it out loud the way it is. That don't. There's no point around talking about things without saying it straight.
Mm.
And so I had to bring a lot of my own issues too, my personal issues, and with them. And that's what I say was almost like a social life for me because outside work, I had no other social life. And yes, I had family, friends, but I never really interacted with them. I was doing a lot of work. So my work was my social life. So these guys were my social life. And in fact, one time we were talking about something very hardcore about values. What is the most important thing in your life? And so I was this having this conversation and decide just kind of drawing in the board what they thought, and that we were having this brainstorming with them. And but I was analyzing their lives, and what it came out of that drawing, and I would love to show you someday. It looked like a cell, like a human cell, and interestingly enough, by the time we address all the dynamics of drugs and friends and feeling of dissatisfaction in our lives or not having good peer support or whatever, it looked like a very amorphous type cell. And I said, this is a sick cell. We have to break it apart and find out what is the most important thing. What makes Thomas who Thomas is? What is the most important value that Thomas has? And then I used one of the inmates, and he offered, and we were addressing all that. 2 hours later, I still remember that. 2 hours later, one of them said, "That's great, Edwin. We get it. Now, what about you?" I'm the teacher, man. And I said, "What about me?" He says, "You've shared your life. You shared that you don't have social life. You use us to socialize. What about you? Where are you on this?" Holy smokes. I mean, I was put on the spot. How can I preach to them about their issues and everything and not, I'm bringing my experience to them and not analyze my own? That was, I think, around probably about 2002. And that particular year, I began a self-searching type of thing. So who is Edwin? What is Edwin all about? What is the most important value for Edwin? And yes, we all say my family, my mom, my dad, my kids. But there is something more important about who we are as individuals. And there is this sacred space inside of us that sometimes we can't see because we have so much covering it and so much distraction that we don't even know we have it. And so I started a period where I was just taking piece at a time to discover who Edwin is and what is his most important value. What does he believe in? What is the most sacred value that you have? And so this is the conversation I had this with this man. And it helped me understand who I was. And, and then helped me put in perspective where my kids and my family was all about. I don't live a perfect life. I didn't live a perfect life. Uh, but I tell you one thing, that soul searching exercise helped me understand how to be better for those that I was representing, that those that were with me in my life. Because I don't live in a bubble, right? I am not Edwin. I mean that idea is lost in the moment that you bring other people into your life or that you have other people in your life. It's no longer about you. We would love to have that all about us as men. And many, even social media, TV, and all those shows, they say it's all about you, but it's not. I mean, even the commercials, they say, because you deserve it. It's like, come on. It's like, I deserve it makes me feel like I'm dissatisfied with what I already have. So I need more because I deserve it. I need more attention because I deserve it. In reality, you're no longer a single person individual. You have a family, you have friends, have your family. If anything, the pandemic has taught us is that we are not we are as strong as our weakest link is a true thing. If individuals in the community are not protecting themselves or not having what they need in order to protect themselves, we're as strong as them because if they get infected, we all are. We're not safe. So that I don't know if that answers your question, but that's where I am.
I really, man, first and foremost, thank you for sharing that story because
Sure.
I know this is a podcast dedicated to being fathers, but man, I'm learning so much about life through all these guests. Um, you just sharing that, one thing that was very impactful was this concept that you're talking to men and asking them to share experiences, thoughts, ideas. You're brainstorming this, and what the image ended up looking like is like a cell. So now here's the thing that was really like really throwing my brain off, man. My brain's like, what? Because I went to, well, what if that is like part of that whole soul searching is the connection with others, because that connection affects us on a cellular level,
Mm.
right?
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
So then diving into that is because of those connections, you were able to not only help them focus on themselves, but then get to focus back on yourself, because you're right. The man, and I feel like I'm going off topic with the whole
No,
podcast
you're
for some
good.
people. This is what it's about. But when you were bringing it back into that, and you were doing your own soul searching, you were discovering that you're more than just that name, like you said. There's something at a cellular level, that core you were saying, that's inside of us, that's what we're trying to all achieve, right? And that's kind of what, like, I personally could hope that my boys figure out one day. I could care less about how much money they make or what jobs they have. If they know who they are and they're happy, they've won, because they'll treat others that same way.
Right. And that is so true. You know, about being a dad and that part of that soul searching made me realize my 4 year old at that time, my 2 year old at that time, what am I giving them? What what is the most important thing that I can give them? And yes, the idea of financial security is there. But financial security, I mean, we all know it goes up and down. I mean, one day I feel in heaven I'm so rich that I go and blow my money in something I don't really need, right? And then the next thing you know, you're like, I don't have food on the table for my kids. And what then? I mean, I'm not a stranger to a food bank. I'm not. I'm not. I've been there. I've done that. I'm not a stranger to not having enough money to pay the bills and or choosing food or electricity. I've been there. We've all been there. And I think when doing that soul searching, it's like there's got to be something more that I can give my kids So when there is no food on their table, so when there is that decision making, that they have something inside that they can rely on and be self-sufficient. And self-sufficient is not about having money in the pocket. It's about having something in here that knows that you can take it from here to there and make it there. Because I'm not going to be there with them all my life, right? I mean, I'm going to die someday. And so what are they going to keep when I die? My papers? My what? The video game I bought? The TV? You know, I need to give him something that, like, the the title of being a Marine. Nobody can take that away from me. So what can I give my kids that nobody can take from them? And and like you said, it's at the cellular level. It's internal, and there is nothing like a good example. There's nothing like um, a good conversation, moments of laughter, stories. Uh, One of the things that I do, and I love taking pictures of them, and so I got thousands, tens of thousands of pictures. So the memories will remain, but the most important ones are right here. And so that is one of the things that I wanted to give to them. And so, what are some of those things that, as men, we want on our children? And now that my kids are older, and I have gone through the toddler years, the preteen, the teen years, and now they're adults, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? Some of the things that they're coming back to me, and I'm like, did I teach you? you know, so it's funny because when my kids were born, I realized I know nothing about kids. So I went back to school to take some child development classes to like, what's going on with this kid? And keep saying no. Doesn't he know? He just needs to listen to me. It was just crazy. And then you realize after you go through classes, and it's like, oh, it's a natural thing for a 2-year-old to say no. So you just have to learn, get the skills to give him options
Mm.
and the opportunity to say no. In that way, and I'm like, wait, what did you just say? I have to give him options and opportunities to say no and say yes, because by doing that, they exercise their own identity, but at the same time, you get what you need, and they understand they cannot always take something. So don't give them 10 things, just give them two. One that they will say no to, and the other one that you want.
Mm.
So I was like, perfect, right? And when it comes to parenting, how many of us have lost our mind when kids don't want to do what you tell them to, even if it is for their own benefit? And I see parents having problems with children playing tantrums and at the stores, and parents losing their cool, and kids suffering for that. And when it is only a matter of just a little bit of information and a little bit of patience from us to learn a skill. So that's some of the things that I did with them. Now they're old, and they didn't give me, I still looking for the manual of parents on how to deal with adult children. Because remember, now they choose themselves, and they have the ability to self-determine their lives, and it's not what you say. Eh, I love to give you this. It's so funny. The pandemic. So one of my youngest son, two boys, my youngest son, he has taken upon himself to be the one that does the shopping.
Mm.
because he wants to protect his dad and mom. Okay, so because of being diabetic and 50 plus, I'm part of a population of risk. My wife, she has cancer and stage 4, and so she needs to protect herself. And so my sons have learned that they need to step up and do things. And so my son is taking the role of grocery shopping, and he has this strategize. Um, Gloves, masks, the whole shebang. And it's just so funny to see. I love to take pictures of him on that and doing this whole thing. And then when he comes back, he has the routine, disinfect everything before he goes into the house, and he doesn't allow us to do the shopping. And I'm thinking, mijo, I do go out and I know how to protect myself. For heaven's sakes, I'm working on these things as public health employee. I, I know the rules. It's like, yeah, but you should know too that even if you do everything right, you could get infected. So you can't do that. And you're at risk. So he didn't let me. So the other day, I told him, well, you ate all the bananas. I would like a banana. so, so you don't have time, so I'm gonna go buy it. And he would not let me have it. I said, no, you crazy? Before Thanksgiving, it's gonna be a circus out there. So he texted my other son, and he said, well, I was planning to do something else, and I have this class. And I said, guys, it's okay. I can handle it. I promise. You know, I'm a Marine. I can do this. I am a big man. I know the stuff and everything. And I hear my older son telling his girlfriend, and my son, the younger son, is Dad is what is it he said? Something. It was just hilarious. I should have written it down. I like, Dad is trying to escape, and or something like that. We need to go do this other stuff. So they coordinated the shopping part, and they didn't let me go out. It, I think when I look at it as a man, hey, I'm a self-sufficient man. I can handle these things. But now I'm in this part of my life where my sons are taking over per se. Some of this stuff. I have to learn to allow them again to walk across the street on their own.
Mm.
I remember the day when my sons were playing with the neighbors, and I taught them to look both ways before they cross the street. I remember that. I still remember that day. And I was so nervous. Like, remember, this is not just one time. You always have to look at both ways. Well, now they're both looking both ways for us as adults. And I have to trust them, just like I did back then, to trust that they know how to walk across the street looking both ways. And and I think that is some of the things that as we grow older, part of us being men is also to know when to let go. And I'm learning that this is a part that I am right now in, is I'm learning to let my kids go. And and I've done that through my years watching them grow. And and now it's more difficult, I think. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know much. about having adult kids, even though they're not totally adults, but it is part of being a dad. I mean, I don't know. But I do have the fortune to have a wife that also sees these things, and she has been so good to them, and she talks with me about different ways to look at the way that my experience as a father is shaping my outlook to life as an older, I can't believe it, older man. you know, but it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful life. It's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not.
I'm sitting here listening to that part, and I'm like, I think about that now. My kids are only 5 and 4, or 6 and 4. Sorry, and I think about that. It's like I can't imagine them not being in my household now, or even when they are, and they're just like these men walking around my house. It's gonna be weird. Like, who are these men walking around my house? Eating all my stuff.
Yeah, and coming and going. Like, don't you didn't want to tell me where you're going? Like, no, Dad.
There was one. So I have a thing I like to do with all the guests. It's a card, these random cards, and they ask questions, and it gets past like those surface levels because a lot of conversations are such surface level, and I think the true beauty, or that to reach that cellular connection, is to dive a little deeper. But before I jump into doing this, I wanted to follow up with something you said that was very impactful. Out of the Marines, once you graduated from boot camp and you served in the Marines, you said you had self-reflection of, did I meet up to my dad? Have I met my dad's expectations? Have I met my own expectations to be able to stand with my dad as a man, kind of thing? And I was wondering, do you feel like your boys feel that pressure from you at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They do. They do, and I can see their struggles going through college. I can see their struggles, you know, becoming part of the workforce, the professional life, and and uh, and then they share with me different things, and some people they know, they have seen some of the work that I've done, or they happen to hear something from somebody, a compliment or whatever, and yes, they do. uh, and I tell you, and I tell them, but you have both things. One is that pride that you have accomplished something, and I tell you this, that I've been fortunate in my life to do so many things, and I've had the opportunity and the attitude to just go ahead and do whatever, and do not whatever, but do different things that have taken me, you know, uh, from kid with $800 in his pocket to one time back in 2012 working with HIV. I was working at the national level with different groups, and I was invited to the White House. You know, hey, here's me. I'm walking in, and that is a little badge, like, yeah, I was there. I was invited to the White House, and then, being in so many places, conferences and everything, all that's opportunities. But it's been because I've been a sucker for a new experience, and I was willing to say, sure, let's do it. And when my kids see their lives, even though they're just barely starting, uh, yes, I see them, and in some ways, I feel maybe I should keep a hush hush so they don't feel down, but at the same time, I want to show them that it takes a while to get there, and not to apologize for what I've done or what I've accomplished, but to give them an expectation that they don't have to meet up with me, but they have to meet their own goals, and that their own life may look different than mine, and probably more successful than mine, or just different than mine. Because that is one of the things that I tell them. I said, don't compare yourself. Please don't compare yourself. Because that's the problem I have. If I compare myself, or I continue to compare myself, or I find myself comparing myself, then at that point, I'm like, I still have an accent. I'm like, and whether I like it or not, people react to that accent, and and I'm not as good at it and like somebody else, and and then I bring myself down, and I should be my own self, and that's what I want my kids to see is like, there's always going to be somebody better than you, richer than you, funner than you, whatever. But you have to learn to walk your own path. And I think, if anything, I've walked my own path, and hopefully they're going to walk their own.
Mm. And I can see that. I can see that. What a great example they have of not only a man in their life to look up to, but a father that's achieved what you've achieved. And I know that in your heart of hearts, like you say that honestly, that it doesn't matter what they do. Like you're proud of them. They're your boys.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
enough. They're enough, right?
Yes, more than that. And they're so great. Sometimes I have to remind them, like, hey, look what you've done. I mean, it's fantastic. And I celebrate their little successes and their successes in general. And then when I see them feeling down, I said, look what you've done in the past. So this is temporary. Just keep moving forward. And oh, I wish I could just put a battery inside them or something, or like, or push a button, and I say, don't let this get you down, because life is too precious. Life is unique, and we all walk our ways, and we have to let our kids walk their ways. But don't forget that, they listen to you as a father, and if anything, they listen to you more than they listen anybody else, even if they don't tell you. That's one thing when teenagers came, is that I learned that they listen to you as a father, as a parent, more than actually they let you know. And you're the most influential voice they have, even if they don't let you know. So they always, what I've noticed now that as they're older, that they come back to what you've said before, good or bad. So I'm always on the check, and I admit to them, I said, look, I didn't do that right. I blew my cool there. I did not understand what you meant. Or I assume this just because I know better, or I know them, excuse me. I assume. And I have to let them know I'm just as vulnerable as they are. I'm not a perfect man. Uh, and I tell them, and I said, look, your uncle may feel that washing dishes is not a manly thing to do, but you've watched me wash dishes since you were little. So don't ever stop. Your wife, future wife, will love you for it. But it's not about you doing something, it's about a partnership. So So was this. A doctor one time told me I had an issue with this finger one time, and I was getting some shots to alleviate the pain. And my son was probably about 2, 3 years old, and I used to take him to the doctor, and I would let him watch what they were doing. So I was telling my son, now look, they're gonna give me a shot, and they're, the whole shebang, and they're like, it's gonna make me feel better. Your dad is not gonna have as much pain, and it's gonna get better. And the doctor would give the shot, and my son would be watching. And says, "Does that hurt?" They're like, "Yeah, it does hurt, and everything." And the doctor eventually told me, after done this so many times, he said, "You're always teaching," and I didn't realize that that was naturally happening. And I find myself doing the same thing still, always teaching, because I don't know how long I have, but I hope that my sons will have the memory of the things that I try to teach them.
Love that. Love that, Edwin.
Thank you.
Teaching me, you're teaching me, and I know you're teaching everyone
Ah,
listening to this episode some valuable lessons um, as men, as fathers, as just human beings, my friend. So I thank you for that. I do thank you.
yeah,
Um, what I'm going to do here now,
sure.
everybody thinks I'm doing sleight of hand. These are random cards, and I don't have a preconceived question I'm going to ask. But I'm just going to go like this. You just tell me when to stop. And I'm just going to take.
Okay, right there, right there.
Okay. This is actually a great question. The question is, what was your childhood dream?
What was my childhood dream? Oh boy. Um, I, the first stupid thing that comes up, the girl next door.
Yes. Love at every port. I see a theme here, Edwin. I see a theme.
Ron, you better edit this out. I, you know, which is interesting question, because I don't know what my childhood dream was, but I think that I came from an environment that it was a family clan mentality, and if anything, that there was a time I recall that I was probably about 7, 8 years old. Yes, I always wanted the lunar, the modular card little thing that from the Apollo, the little car toy. I always wanted that, never got it. But coming from the clan mentality, one thing that I noticed is that, and I recall, is that my cousins used to come every summer from the coast in Ecuador, and they come and visit, and that so they would come, mom, dad, and my cousins, and we loved that time because they would come in their car, and then we would go on trips and things like that. And when they leave, we would be back again. And my thing is, we didn't have a car, and I saw my dad, and we always walked and took the buses everywhere we went. And my dad was going through, maybe some economical hardship back then. And when he died, that was an issue for us too. Uh, my dad needed to go to the hospital, then we used taxis. And we never had a car to transport him. And that was something that I always wanted. is that for my family to have a car. So I bought a truck.
Cool.
I don't know. Yeah, nothing exciting that way, you know. But that's the way it is. Some people want different things, but some others are in a different environment. So I think that as you think about it, which is a very interesting question, Thomas, that didn't have the opportunity to get my little toy, but I did get a pair of pants and a pair of shoes every Christmas and new pants, and that was supposed to last until next Christmas. So
Man, what an awesome answer. Because I think most people just go initially, if they were to receive a question like that, they're going to go to, well, I dreamt of being this when I grew up.
hmm,
Or I dreamt of being this. And the sad thing is, a lot of people dream about doing something, but that dream gets lost as we grow and as life happens, right? Yours was very specific in your mind, Edwin. And not only did you accomplish your dream, you've accomplished so much more than even just the truck. I mean, but that was such a significant moment, I'm sure, for you when you realized that this was something that you desired when you were younger and you provide that for your family.
hmm,
And it just goes back to all these stories and just the characteristics of who you are and the values you've placed on yourself, and you're seeing it. I mean, your sons won't let you go shopping. I mean, this is like, you've done it, Edwin. You've done it. I'm very inspired by your stories. And I just have one final question I want to know, and I'm
sure.
sure others would love to hear it as well. And this one means a lot because I feel like you can ask a man about business, you can ask him about all kinds of stuff, but this question makes you really think, because what is that one message that you would tell one of your sons before they were becoming a father? What's that one thing if they're like, Dad, what is the one piece of advice you have for me as I transition into being a father?
Wow, wow. That I'm in retrospect. I'm trying to think about myself back then. Um, that's a hard question. First of all, my I told my kids no getting married until at least you have your college degree. I didn't say it until you make $1 million, nothing like that. So I hope that in the next 2 years I'll have grandkids, um, and I'm gonna love them to death because my wife and I just love babies. Um, but what would I tell them? You know, it goes back to all my experiences about as a father, as a man, as a person in the community. I've seen so much, and I feared so much that my kids get pulled in different directions that they shouldn't go. And but my thing, it would be present. Be present with them in everything. When they are giggling, when it's time to change a diaper, when they're sick, be present with them because that's what they need, is that security. Be present when they fall down, and be present when they have friends. and they're wondering about what they see on TV. So you can be present to make sure that they not only be able to show by example to assure them that they're going to be okay. When they fall, if they see you freak out, they'll freak out. But if they see you that you're managing it, then they know that what they're experiencing is not bad, but it's something that they can overcome. That will instill security. Be present on those aspects, and most important is just be present by their example as well. Man, Thomas, that I was not expecting that. I don't know what I would tell them exactly, but if anything, I'd say be present with their loves and be present mind and body, um, because by doing that, just you're not existing to them. You are actually a force in their life, and then by doing that, they'll be able to move on to the next phase, and you never stop for being present.
Love that. I genuinely love that answer. And what you said right there too is by being present with them in every moment with your mind, your body, you are a force. You're not just existing or coexisting with them. You're a force with them because that energy's there. And
Mhm.
energy is a powerful source, right? It's a force in itself. So being that, I love that, Edwin. This
Thank you.
episode has been unbelievable. I challenge the listeners to go back, listen to this again, listen to a lot of these messages, and implement this stuff in your life. Listen, a podcast is great and this can be entertaining, but if you don't take what some of these unbelievable men that are coming on the show and they're sharing and you put it into your own practice with your kids, you're missing it. You're missing
Yeah.
it. Edwin, again, thank you so much for jumping on and doing this episode with me. It's been, man, my pleasure. It's just been amazing, and I just am so thankful for you.
Thank you, Thomas, and you're a great friend. I enjoyed this time with you, and thank you for the opportunity for me to share some of my experience. And uh, what can I say? I'll see you around.